How well does the iPhone 6s perform in 2017? Well, I've owned this phone since new and it's been my daily driver from the time it was released. So here are my thoughts after almost 2 years of using this phone every single day. Let's start with the design. The design is very common. The iPhone 6 had it and even the iPhone 7 has the same design, just with some minor tweaks with the relocation of the antenna bands and a bigger camera, or a dual camera if you upgrade to the Plus model. Coming from the iPhone 6, the iPhone 6s does have some new features like 3D touch, 4K camera, and overall a better build quality with the 7000 series aluminum. Holding the phone without a skin or a case on does make it a bit slippery, but that's a problem with every phone out there right now. Looking at the front, we have a 4.7-inch display or a 5.5-inch display if you upgrade to the Plus model, which I have right over here. The overall screen resolution and quality is pretty decent, but with the newer trend of longer screen sizes with the Galaxy S8 and the LG G6, we might find this phone getting a little outdated pretty soon, and especially if Apple decides to go with a longer screen size as well. But for currently what this phone is as of now, before I talk about all the goods and the bads, let's get all the written specs out of the way. So the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus are available in 16, 32 and 128GB if you're buying them used, and 32 and 128GB if you're buying it brand new from Apple. 2GB of RAM, which you can definitely feel if you're coming from an older device like an iPhone 5s or even an iPhone 6. In fact, the iPhone 6s was the first iPhone to have 2GB of RAM, and it definitely helps in making the whole operating system much smoother and faster. You're able to multitask pretty well, loading times are a bit faster, and overall iPhones were due for an upgrade. I mean, at the time of the launch, we already had most Androids with 2GB to even 4GB of RAM. But anyways, overall speeds are pretty good, and honestly, doing some basic stuff, there's not a big difference in this and the iPhone 7. The iPhone 7 is faster, but it is a brand new device. It's more expensive, and this guy has been used for almost 2 years now. So that does affect its ability to perform, but if you're coming from an older device like an iPhone 5, 5s or even iPhone 6, you'll find the speeds are pretty good. It came out with iOS 9, currently on iOS 10, and will be upgraded to iOS 11 whenever that is public. But as an estimate, it should be supported for another 2 generations of iOS. And moving on, we have an Apple A9 dual-core processor. For our camera, we have a 12 megapixel back-facing camera which is able to shoot at 4K 30 frames per second, or you can go all the way down to 240 frames per second with 720p resolution. And when I got this phone, I was able to take really good pictures and videos, but now not so much. And here's probably why. If you carefully look at my back camera, there's some haze or some kind of fog inside the lens. And I took it to the Apple store and they told me it's kind of humidity that has built inside the camera lens. And the reason they tell me is water damage, but I know as a fact my phone has never been in contact with water. So I don't know, maybe the seals were not good enough on my phone and the phone was out of warranty, so I didn't get it replaced. But here are some 4K sample footages taken from the iPhone 6s Plus downscaled to 1080p. I will have the download links for the original 4K file along with some pictures in the description box. Anyways, you won't notice so much of a difference if you're shooting outdoors, but if you're shooting indoors in a low light environment, the pictures would tend to be more blurry and the camera would have a hard time focusing. But that's a personal issue I had, doesn't mean every 6s would face the same problem. But moving on, we have a 5 megapixel front facing camera and a second generation Touch ID which works a lot quicker and overall it's more accurate. Oh, and it's also the last iPhone to have a headphone jack, so another thing you might want to consider while making your decision. In terms of battery, you get 1750 mAh for the regular model and 2750 for the Plus model. I have the Plus model and for me personally, the battery life is pretty bad. I get somewhere around 4 hours of on-screen time browsing around social media, checking emails and all that. And this could be even worse if you're playing some high-intensive games. But considering the fact I've been a heavy user since almost 2 years now, when I got this phone new, I was getting about a day and a half of battery life, which was pretty good, but slowly over time it decreased, which was expected. So if you're buying this phone new, battery shouldn't be a problem, but if you're buying it used, your battery could significantly depend on how heavily your phone has been used. So if battery life is a problem, I would recommend spending $20–30 getting a new battery. It would definitely be a good investment, or you can spend that money into getting a power bank, whatever works better for you. So some additional features you'll get with the iPhone 6s if you're coming from an older device are things like 3D touch, which Apple made a big hype about, but in my personal opinion is pretty useless. Apple claims it makes navigation faster, opening up specific features would be easier, but honestly it's just a second way of doing things. I think if games interacted with 3D touch, like the harder you press the more your car turns or something like that, it could have been a better feature, but I didn't see anything like that yet. But to clear my point, 3D touch is a feature that works, and sure, you can get in habit of doing things using 3D touch, but if it doesn't make anything more efficient or more effective, I find it pretty useless. So far the only time I use 3D touch and find it effective is scrolling through the cursor, or sometimes getting a preview of an email or a link without physically opening it up. And you might disagree, which is totally fine, but that's just my opinion. So overall, the iPhone 6s is a pretty good phone. For 2 years that I've used it, it has held up pretty good. Just some disappointment from the camera and the battery life, but that is expected after such heavy use. And you also get some other features like live photos, which I honestly only used like 6 or 7 times when I just got the phone, so I'm not even gonna bother talking about features like that. But if you're planning to go for the iPhone 6s for 3D touch, live photos or any of that, I wouldn't recommend it. The features simply aren't worth it, but if you're planning to upgrade for better camera, better performance, it will definitely deliver. You might also want to consider getting this instead of the iPhone 7, since there is no big performance difference or features. And in return, you'll be saving a ton of money, especially if you go for a used model. On top of that, you can save a little more, sell the current phone you have, and upgrade to the new iPhone 7s or the iPhone 8, whatever they decide to call it. And yeah guys, that was it for today. Let me know your thoughts on the iPhone 6s in a comment down below, and if you like this video, subscribe for more videos like that. And as always, thanks for watching.